Sarah Whitehawk's hand shook as she raised it to knock. 3 years back, this same man had spit tobacco juice at her feet. Called her Apache trash, while Redemption Creek's good Christians nodded their approval. She'd walked 5 miles for water that day, her baby sister Grace crying from thirst in her arms. Now she stood at Ethan Cole's door with 5 starving women about to offer him the only thing desperate women could trade. Behind them, Colonel Thornton's hounds were closing fast. If you want to see how 6 hunted women and 1 broken ranger change the frontier, hit subscribe and stay till the end. Drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far Sarah's story travels. Now let me take you back to that rainy night when everything changed. The knock came at midnight. Ethan Cole had his Colt cocked before his boots hit the floor. 2 years alone in the borderlands taught a man that visitors meant trouble, and midnight visitors meant the killing kind. He moved to the window, pressed his face against the gap in the shutters. 6 women stood on his porch, drenched, shivering. The tallest one in front had her fist raised to knock again. Even through rain and darkness, Ethan recognized that scar along her jaw. "Jesus Christ," he whispered. "Sarah Whitehawk." He opened the door. She stood there dripping defiant. Her dark eyes locked on his without the fear most Apache women had learned to show white men. Behind her, 5 others huddled together, descending in height, like stairs leading down to hell. The tall one had fighter's hands knuckles scarred from old battles. A Chinese girl with a braid to her waist kept her gaze down, but her posture ready. A young Mexican woman had wildflowers wilting in her black hair. A girl barely 14 clutched a wooden cross, and the 6th one swayed on her feet, her arm wrapped in cloth soaked black with blood. "Mr. Cole?" Sarah's English carried no accent precise as a schoolteacher's. "We need shelter." Ethan's eyes swept past her to the bleeding girl. "Sarah, what kind of trouble you bringing to my door?" "The kind that kills us before sunrise." Her chin lifted. "The kind you can ignore if your conscience allows it." The barb hit clean. 3 years back, he'd done exactly that, stood drunk in Redemption Creek's town square, and watched good citizens deny this woman water. Watched them spit at her feet. Watched her baby sister cry, while respectable folk clutched their pearls and quoted scripture about heathens. He'd laughed that day, too drunk and bitter to care. "I ain't that man anymore," Ethan said. "Prove it." Sarah's voice cracked. "Please." The bleeding girl collapsed. 2 women caught her before she hit the porch. The one with flowers in her hair pressed fingers to the girl's throat, checking for pulse. The Chinese girl was already tearing strips from her own shirt for bandages. "Bring her inside." Ethan stepped back. "All of you, now." They moved fast, carrying the unconscious girl between them. As they passed, Ethan caught the smell, rain and mud and blood and something else. Fear. The sharp metal scent of hunted things. He shut the door, turned to find 6 women standing in his one-room cabin, water pooling at their feet, watching him like cornered animals trying to decide if he was threat or salvation. "Put her on the bed," Ethan said, pointing to the corner. "Let me see that arm." The wounded girl couldn't have been 17. She whimpered when the tall woman laid her down. Sarah moved between them, and Ethan immediately protective. "It's infected," Sarah said. 4 days running. I've done what I can, but she needs medicine and rest." Ethan grabbed his medical kit. "Who's chasing you?" Silence. Ethan looked directly at Sarah. "If somebody's tracking you, they'll be here soon. I need to know what I'm facing." Sarah's jaw worked like she was chewing glass. Finally. "Colonel Marcus Thornton runs a work camp 50 miles north. Calls it a reformatory for wayward women." The words dripped poison. "We escaped 3 nights ago. He sent hunters." Ethan's hands stilled on the bandage roll. "Marcus Thornton. You know him." "Know of him." Ethan unwrapped the soiled cloth from the girl's arm. The wound beneath was angry, swollen, leaking pus. "Union officer during the war. After he convinced the territory to fund his reformation program. teaching Native women domestic skills and Christian values. He teaches us to service white men. Sarah's voice went flat. Every way they want. Punishes resistance. The girl on the bed opened her eyes. My name is Elena, she whispered. Not the girl. Elena Vasquez, half Navajo, half Mexican. Taken from my village when I was 12. I'm 17 now. She looked straight at Ethan. The overseer gave me this when I tried to stop him beating Maria. She gestured to the woman with flowers in her hair. I'm Maria, the flower girl said softly. Her English was hesitant but clear. 19, from Chihuahua. They took me from the convent where I was studying to be a healer. She touched the wilted blooms in her hair. I keep flowers to remember who I was before. The tall woman stepped forward. Nina Redhawk, 24, Navajo. I was Colonel Thornton's first acquisition 6 years ago. She held up her scarred knuckles. I fought every day for the first year. He broke 3 of my fingers teaching me obedience. The Chinese girl spoke next, her voice quiet but steady. Lily Chen, 28. My father worked on the railroad. When he died, the foreman sold me to pay his debts. I know about dynamite and how to make things explode. The youngest one clutched her cross tighter. Grace, 14, Apache. They killed my parents and said the reformatory would save my soul. Tears ran down her face. I don't think God lives in that place. Sarah was last. Sarah Whitehawk, 32. Half Navajo, half Scottish. Educated at a missionary school before they burned it and took the girls. I've been Thornton's property for 18 months. She touched the scar on her jaw. He gave me this the first week when I refused to call him master. 6 women, 6 names, 6 faces Ethan would remember the rest of his life. The wound needs cauterizing, he said, looking at Elena. It's going to hurt like hell. Everything hurts. Elena's smile was bitter. Pain is just pain. Ethan heated his knife in the fireplace. Sarah held Elena's hand and spoke rapid Navajo, soft and soothing. The others formed a protective circle, each touching Elena, somewhere shoulder, ankle, hand. Connected. He worked fast, cleaned the wound, pressed hot metal to infected flesh. Elena bit down on leather and tears streamed silent down her face, but she didn't scream. Didn't make a sound beyond harsh breathing through clenched teeth. When he finished bandaging her arm, Elena grabbed his wrist. Her grip was surprisingly strong. Thank you, she said, for using my name, for seeing me. Before Ethan could respond, Nina held up her hand. Listen. In the distance, faint but growing closer, dogs. We have to run. Nina moved to the door. We just needed to patch Elena. We'll be gone before... They're already close. Ethan could hear them now, hounds baying through rain. You won't make it a mile. Then we fight. Sarah's voice went hard as iron. We won't go back. We die first. Or... Ethan said carefully. You stay here, hide. Let me handle Thornton's men. Sarah laughed, and it was the saddest sound Ethan had ever heard. Why would you do that? You don't know us. 3 years ago, you wouldn't even let me take water from a public well. You called me Apache trash and spit at my feet. The memory hit like a gut punch. 3 years ago, I was drowning in a bottle. Didn't give a damn about anything except my own misery. And now I'm sober. Ethan met her eyes. And I remember every face I turned away from, especially yours. Guilt isn't reason enough to die for strangers. Maybe not. But 6 months back, I heard about a Navajo woman named Morning Star. She was killed by raiders while gathering herbs alone. Ethan's voice roughened. I also heard she'd once saved a wounded stranger. Gave him water and shelter when nobody else would. Took care of him for 3 days till he could ride. That stranger was me, Sarah. She saved my life, and when she needed help, I was too drunk to know. Too bitter to care. He paused. I can't bring Morning Star back, but I can stop being the man who turns away. The dogs were closer now. Minutes away, maybe less. Sarah stepped toward him. Close enough he could feel heat radiating from her body despite her wet clothes. She smelled like rain and something herbal sage maybe, or sweetgrass. "Mr. Cole," she said quietly, "before you make this decision, you need to know something." Ethan looked at her. Up close, he could see the scar on her jaw wasn't just a mark someone had carved it deliberately, slowly. The sight made something dark and furious wake in his chest. "When we came to your door tonight," Sarah continued steady, despite trembling hands, "we made a choice. The 6 of us talked about what we could offer in exchange for shelter. Sarah, let me finish." She held his gaze. "We know what men value. We know what they take from women like us, whether we offer or not. So we decided to offer first. Make it a transaction instead of a theft. Keep some small piece of dignity." Behind them, the 5 other women watched. Nina nodded slowly. Grace had tears on her face, but her chin lifted. "We came here to have sex with you," Sarah said clearly. "All 6 of us, if that's what you wanted. In exchange for one night's shelter and enough head start to reach the territorial line." The words hung in the lamplight. Ethan felt sick. Not at the offer he understood. Survival understood what people did at the edge of existence. But at the world that taught these women their bodies were the only currency anyone would accept. "No," he said. Sarah's eyes narrowed. "No to the trade, or no to all of it." Ethan's voice came out rougher than intended. "You want shelter, you got it. Food, medicine, horses, come morning, you got it. But there's no trade, no transaction, no payment. Nothing is free." Nina stepped forward, her scarred hands clenched. "Men don't help unless they want something." "Then I guess I'm different than most men." Ethan moved to his rifle, checked the load. "Here's what's happening. You 6 are hiding in the root cellar under those floorboards. You stay quiet no matter what you hear. I convinced Thornton's men you were never here." "They won't believe you," Sarah said. "Probably not. They'll kill you. They'll try." Sarah grabbed his arm. Her fingers dug into his forearm with surprising strength. The touch sent electricity through him, unexpected, unwelcome, entirely inappropriate. For 2 years, Ethan had avoided human contact, avoided connection, avoided feeling anything except familiar guilt. But her hand on his arm, warm despite rain, strong despite exhaustion, cracked something open in his chest he'd thought was dead. He looked down at her. Really looked. Not at Apache trash, like he'd seen 3 years ago, but at Sarah Whitehawk, a woman who'd survived hell and was still fighting, still protecting her people, still choosing dignity over surrender. And God help him, she was beautiful. "Why?" she demanded. "Why risk your life for women you don't know, women whose water you wouldn't share?" "Because 2 years ago I refused an order." The words came hard. "My commander told me to ride into a Navajo village and kill everyone. Women, children, elders. Called it pacification. I said no. Cost me my badge and 3 good men their lives when my commander sent someone else to do it." He paused. "I thought refusing that order made me decent. Took me 2 years to realize refusing wasn't enough. I should have warned that village. Should have done something instead of just walking away and drinking myself blind. Morningstar was in that village, Sarah. She died because I was too much of a coward to do the right thing." Sarah's grip on his arm loosened. "So this is redemption?" "No, this is just doing what I should have done the first time." Ethan gestured to the floorboards. "Root cellar, now." Outside, the dogs stopped baying. The hunters were dismounting, approaching on foot. Sarah held his gaze for 3 heartbeats, searching for the lie she expected. Whatever she saw must have satisfied her because she nodded once. "Nina, Lily, get the boards." They moved with practiced efficiency. Nina lifted the loose planks near the bed, revealing darkness below. Ladder rungs descended into earth and shadows. Elena went first, helped by Maria, who whispered prayers in Spanish. Grace followed, clutching her cross. Lily went next, her braid disappearing into blackness. Nina gestured for Sarah to go ahead. Sarah paused at the top of the ladder. "Ethan Cole, if you get us killed tonight, I'm haunting you for eternity." "Fair enough." Despite everything, he almost smiled. "If I get you killed, I'll deserve it." She descended. Nina followed, pulling the boards back into place from below. Ethan was alone. He moved to the window. Through the shutters he counted 4 shapes approaching through rain. 4 men, probably armed. Maybe more waiting in the darkness. Bad odds. But he'd faced worse. A voice called from outside. "Ethan Cole, we know you're in there." Ethan recognized that voice. Jack Reeves, Thornton's lead hunter. They'd met once years back. Reeves had dead eyes and a laugh that enjoyed other people's pain. "Haven't seen anyone," Ethan called back. "Just me and the storm." Laughter. Cruel. Knowing. "That's interesting, Cole. We followed tracks right to your door. Fresh tracks. 6 sets. You sure you want to lie?" Ethan's hand tightened on his rifle. "Storm like this, tracks wash away. Could be from hours ago." "Could be. Or they're inside right now hiding like scared rabbits." Reeves's voice went cold. "Open the door, Cole. Let's talk like civilized men." "I'm comfortable where I am." "Shame. Because I'm about to stop being polite. You got 5 seconds to open this door before I kick it in." Beneath the floorboards, Ethan knew Sarah was listening to every word. She'd understand what came next. She had to. "They were here," Ethan admitted. The lie tasted like ash. "Showed up 2 hours ago, half dead, soaking wet. I gave them food and sent them east toward the territorial line. They got maybe 2 hours head start." Silence. Then, "Ben, circle around back. Cole, you just bought yourself a search. If you're telling truth, no harm done. If you're lying," Reeves laughed, "well, you'll regret it." The door exploded inward, splintering wood. 4 men filled the doorway with drawn revolvers and hard grins. Reeves came first, big man with a face like a clenched fist and eyes that enjoyed violence. "Evening, Cole." His gun pointed casual at Ethan's chest. "Mind if we look around?" "Seems like you're doing it whether I mind or not." "Smart man." Reeves gestured. "Check everywhere. Under the bed, behind barrels, in every corner." The men spread out, methodical and efficient. One of them paused near the bed, studying the floor. Ethan's pulse spiked. "Boss?" The man knelt. "These boards look loose." Reeves smiled. "Do they?" He crossed to the bed in 3 strides, grabbed the board edge, started to lift. Sarah coughed. The sound was soft, barely audible, but in the cabin's tension, it rang like a gunshot. Reeves froze. His smile widened into something savage. "Well, well." He yanked the boards up fully. "What do we have here?" Nobody moved. Then Sarah climbed out herself. Hands raised, face carved from stone. She emerged with dignity, refusing to crawl, refusing to cower. Behind her came the others. Nina first, then Lily, then Maria, helping Elena. Grace came last, tears streaming, but her cross held high. "Hello, Sarah." Reeves holstered his weapon and walked slow circles around the 6 women. "Miss me?" Sarah said nothing. Her eyes found Ethan's across the cabin, accusation and resignation and something else. Understanding, maybe. That he'd tried. "On your knees," Reeves said. "All of you." They knelt. Water pooled around them. One of Reeves's men pressed a gun barrel against Ethan's spine. "Don't," the man whispered. "You done enough damage." Reeves crouched in front of Sarah, grabbed a handful of her hair, jerked her head back, exposing her throat. "You know what happens to girls who run. You remember what Colonel Thornton does to teach lessons." "I remember." Sarah's voice stayed steady despite tears forming. "Good. Reeves released her hair, stood. Tie them up. We're taking them back tonight. Colonel wants to make an example before the other girls get ideas. His men moved forward with rope. Ethan made his choice. He drove his elbow backward into the gut of the man behind him. Hard, fast, grabbed the gun barrel. Twisted. The weapon discharged into the floor, deafening crack. Ethan slammed the rifle butt into the man's face. Felt bone crunch. The man went down. Everything erupted. Reeves spun, drawing his gun. Sarah was already moving. She swept legs out from under the nearest man, lunged for his dropped weapon. Nina tackled another hunter. Her scarred fists hammered his face once, twice, 3 times. Lily Chen grabbed the iron poker from the fireplace, swung hard, connected with a skull. The man dropped like a stone. Maria shoved Grace behind the overturned table. Stay down! Elena, despite her wounded arm, kicked at Reeves's man. Caught his knee. He stumbled. Ethan fired twice. First shot took the man by the door center mass, clean kill. Second went wide as someone crashed into him. He hit the floor hard. Rifle skittered away. Hands found his throat. He drove thumbs into his attacker's eyes. The man screamed, released him. Gunfire, 1, 2, 3 shots, rapid succession. Sarah fired at the ceiling. Hunters ducked. Nina used that split second to grab another weapon. Ethan rolled, found his rifle. Came up to see Reeves holding Elena with a gun to her head. Everybody stops or the girl dies, Reeves bellowed. The cabin froze. Sarah stood with a revolver in both hands, aimed at Reeves's head. Nina had another gun on the last standing hunter. Lily held the bloody poker. Maria and Grace huddled behind the table. The floor was littered with 3 unconscious or dead men. Put it down, Sarah, Reeves said calmly. You shoot me, I shoot her. We all lose. Then we all lose. Sarah's hands didn't waver. I won't go back. None of us will. You want to kill us, kill us. But you're not taking us alive. Big talk for someone hiding behind a scared girl. I'm not scared. Elena spoke clearly, voice stronger than before. Blood seeped through her bandage, but she stood straight in Reeves's grip. I'm not scared of you, Elena repeated. I'm not scared of dying. I'm only scared of going back to that place. So if Sarah shoots you and you shoot me, fine. At least I'll die free. Something flickered in Reeves's eyes. Uncertainty. The realization he was holding a hostage who didn't care if she lived or died. Elena, Sarah started. Shoot him, Elena said. Sarah's finger tightened on the trigger. Ethan saw his chance. He lunged low and fast, drove his shoulder into Reeves's knees. The big man went down. Gun fired wild. Elena twisted free. Ethan's fist found Reeves's jaw once, twice, 3 times, until the man went limp. Silence fell. Ethan stood slowly, breathing hard, knuckles bleeding. Around him 6 women stood armed and ready, eyes fierce and wild. Is he dead? Grace asked in a small voice. Ethan checked Reeves's pulse. Unconscious. The others? Sarah lowered her gun slowly. Her hands shook now, adrenaline catching up. 2 dead, 2 out cold. Maria crossed herself, started praying in Spanish. Nina kicked one of the unconscious men. What do we do with them? Leave them. Ethan moved to the window, peered through shutters into rain and darkness. We got maybe 20 minutes before Thornton realizes his men aren't coming back. Sarah stepped beside him. Close enough he could feel her warmth. How do you know? Because Reeves was supposed to fire a signal shot when he found you. Ethan gestured to the unfired gun on the floor. When that shot doesn't come, Thornton will come himself. How many men does he have? At his camp, 30, maybe 40? Grace made a small whimpering sound. Then we can't run, Lily said quietly. Her English was better now, stress sharpening her words. He has horses, dogs, trackers. We're wounded, exhausted. We won't make it 5 miles. She's right. Nina's shoulders sagged. We fight here or die running. Either way we die. No. Ethan grabbed his ammunition, started loading saddlebags. We ride to Redemption Creek. It's 8 miles. We get there before Thornton will have witnesses. Law. He can't just take you in front of a whole town. The town that denied us water. Sarah's laugh was bitter. The town that called us savages and spit on us. That town. The town with a telegraph office and a federal marshal who owes me a favor. Ethan met her eyes. It's not perfect, but it's better than dying here. Maria spoke up, her voice soft but clear. In my village, we had a saying. Un paso adelante es mejor que morir de pie. One step forward is better than dying standing still. Wise village, Ethan said. Dead village. Maria's smile was sad. Raiders killed everyone, but the wisdom survived. Silence for a moment. Then Sarah nodded. We ride. They moved fast. Ethan had 4 horses in the barn, not enough for 7 people, but enough if they doubled up. He threw saddles on, while the women gathered what little they had. Grace found Ethan's spare rifle, held it awkwardly, clearly never having handled a gun. Here. Nina took it from her gently, showed her how to hold it, how to aim. Like this. You don't shoot unless I tell you. Understand? Grace nodded, solemn as a vow. Elena was too weak to ride alone. Maria helped her onto a horse, climbed up behind her. I've got you, Hermana. I won't let go. Lily and Grace doubled up. Nina took a horse alone. She sat in the saddle like she was born there. That left Sarah and Ethan sharing the last mount. She hesitated before climbing up. I can ride with one of the others. Horse is already loaded heavy with supplies. Ethan held out his hand. We don't have time to rearrange. Sarah took his hand. Let him pull her up behind him. She settled into the saddle, her arms wrapping around his waist for balance. The contact sent heat through him, despite the rain, despite the danger, despite everything telling him this was the worst possible time to notice how she fit against him, like she belonged there. Don't get ideas, Sarah muttered near his ear. This is survival, not romance. Wouldn't dream of it. But Ethan's voice came out rougher than intended. They rode hard into the rain. Behind them, Ethan's cabin stood with its door hanging broken blood on the floor, and 4 of Thornton's men scattered like broken toys. Ahead, Redemption Creek waded 8 miles through darkness and mud, and the kind of terrain that broke horses and men. And somewhere between here and there, Colonel Marcus Thornton was riding to intercept them. Sarah's arms tightened around Ethan's waist as they galloped. When we get to town, she said, they're going to ask questions. About us. About why you're helping. Let them ask. They'll call you Apache lover. Race traitor. They'll... Sarah. Ethan cut her off. I stopped caring what people call me when I realized the people I respected most were the ones everyone else called savages. He paused. Besides, after tonight, Apache lover is probably the kindest thing they'll say. Behind them, a gunshot cracked through the rain. That's the signal, Sarah said. Thornton knows we're gone. Ethan kicked his horse faster. Then we better ride like hell itself is chasing us. It is, Sarah whispered. And she was right. The rain turned to ice 20 minutes into their ride. Ethan felt Sarah shiver against his back, her arms locked tight around his waist. Behind them, the other horses struggled through mud that grabbed at hooves like hands pulling them down. How much further? Sarah shouted over the wind. 6 miles, maybe less. Ethan pushed his horse harder. Can everyone still ride? Nina pulled alongside them, her face grim. Elena's fading. She needs to stop. We stop, we die. She falls off this horse. She dies anyway. Ethan cursed, pulled back on the reins. The group slowed to a trot, then a walk. Maria had both arms wrapped around Elena, now holding her upright in the saddle. The girl's head lolled against Maria's shoulder, her skin pale as death in the darkness. Elena. Ethan rode closer. Stay with us. We're almost there. Elena's eyes fluttered open. I'm sorry. I'm slowing everyone down." "You're not slowing anything." Maria's voice was fierce. "We ride together or not at all." "She's burning up," Lily said quietly. She'd pulled her horse alongside Maria's, her hand on Elena's forehead. "The infection is spreading, even if we reach the town." "We'll get her a doctor." Ethan scanned the darkness ahead. Redemption Creek has a physician. Old man named Turner. He's decent. He'll help. "Will he?" Sarah's voice was sharp. "Help Apache women, help the property of Colonel Marcus Thornton." "He'll help if I ask him to. And if he refuses, then I'll make him help." Ethan kicked his horse forward again. "But we have to get there first." They rode in silence for another mile. The landscape was nothing but darkness and rain, and the occasional lightning flash that turned the world white and terrible. Each time the lightning came, Ethan searched the horizon behind them for signs of pursuit. On the fourth flash, he saw them. Riders, at least a dozen, maybe more, 2 miles back and closing fast. Sarah felt him tense. "How many?" "Too many." "Can we outrun them?" Ethan looked at Elena slumped in Maria's arms. At Grace clinging to Lily, her face buried against the older woman's back. At Nina, riding with the rifle across her lap, scanning the darkness like a soldier. "No," he said. "We can't." Nina heard him, pulled her horse close. "Then we fight. Find high ground, make a stand." 6 exhausted women and 1 man against Thornton's entire crew. Ethan shook his head. "That's not a fight. That's a massacre." "So what do you suggest?" Nina's voice went hard. "We can't run, can't fight, can't hide. What's left?" Ethan's mind raced. The trail to Redemption Creek followed the ridgeline for another 3 miles before dropping into the valley where the town sat. Open ground. No cover, no tactical advantage. But there was another route. "The canyon," he said suddenly. "Miller's Canyon runs parallel to this ridge. It's narrow, rocky, dangerous in the rain." "How dangerous?" Sarah asked. 3 men died there last spring. Flash flood swept them away." "And you want to ride through it in a storm?" "I want to ride through it because Thornton won't follow. He's got too many men, too many horses. Canyon's too narrow for a group that size. He'll have to go around, add another hour to his chase." Nina considered this. "And if we get caught in a flash flood? Then we drown. But at least we die free instead of in Thornton's reformatory." Maria spoke up from behind Elena's unconscious form. "In my village, the elders taught us to choose how we die. Drowning in a canyon is better than what Colonel Thornton does to girls who run." "Grace." Lily looked down at the girl clinging to her. "What do you say?" Grace lifted her head. Her face was streaked with rain and tears, but her voice came steady. "I say we take the canyon. I'd rather drown than go back to that place." "Sarah." Ethan felt her arms tighten around him. "You're asking me to trust your judgment. The judgment of a man who 3 years ago called me Apache trash." "I am." Silence. Then, "The canyon. But if we die down there, Ethan Cole, I'm haunting you twice as hard." "Fair enough." Ethan turned his horse off the main trail. The others followed. The path down to Miller's Canyon was steep and treacherous, loose rocks sliding under hooves. Ethan's horse stumbled twice. The second time, Sarah gasped, and her arms went tight enough around his waist that he could barely breathe. "I've got you," he said. "I won't let you fall." "You better not. I didn't survive Thornton's reformatory just to die falling off a horse." They reached the canyon floor 20 minutes later. The walls rose 50 feet on either side, close enough in places that 2 horses could barely ride abreast. Water already ran ankle-deep along the canyon bottom, rushing south toward the valley. "This is insane," Lily said, staring up at the narrow strip of sky visible between canyon walls. "If it floods." "It won't." Ethan hoped he sounded more confident than he felt. "Storm's moving east. We'll be through before the real water comes." They rode single file. Ethan led, Nina brought up the rear. The sound of water echoed off canyon walls, mixing with thunder, and the clatter of hooves on stone. 10 minutes in, Grace screamed. Ethan spun in his saddle. Behind them, a wall of water 3 feet high was rushing through the canyon, carrying debris and foam and the promise of drowning. "Ride!" Ethan kicked his horse into a gallop. "Ride now!" The horses lunged forward, splashing through rising water. Sarah's arms locked around Ethan like iron bands. Behind them, Nina was shouting at the others to stay close, stay moving, don't stop. The flood caught them anyway. One moment, Ethan's horse was galloping through ankle-deep water. The next, the water was chest-high, and rising the current, trying to sweep them sideways into the canyon wall. Ethan pulled hard on the reins, keeping the horse's head up, keeping them moving forward. Sarah was praying in Navajo behind him, words he didn't understand, but recognized as desperate pleas to whatever gods were listening. Maria's horse went down. Elena and Maria both tumbled into the water. Ethan saw Maria's hand reach up, grasping for anything. Nina was already moving, urging her horse forward, reaching down. She caught Maria's wrist. Pulled. Maria came up, gasping, water streaming from her face, but Elena was gone, swept away in the current. "Elena!" Maria screamed. "Elena!" Lily didn't hesitate. She slid off her horse into the water, Grace crying out behind her. The current grabbed Lily immediately, pulling her downstream. She swam hard, fighting the water, her braid trailing behind her like a rope. She caught Elena 30 yards down, got an arm around the girl's chest, started pulling her toward the canyon wall where the current was weaker. Ethan rode after them. Sarah jumped off before the horse stopped moving, wading through waist-deep water to help Lily. Together, they dragged Elena to a narrow ledge where the water couldn't reach. Elena wasn't breathing. Maria dropped beside her, tilted her head back, breathed into her mouth. Once, twice, 3 times, pressed on her chest. Water poured from Elena's lips. "Come on," Maria whispered. "Come on, Hermana. Breathe." Elena's body convulsed. She coughed up more water, gasped, her eyes flying open in panic. "You're okay," Maria said, tears mixing with rain on her face. "You're okay. I've got you." Nina called from upstream. "Water's still rising. We have to move." They remounted. Elena could barely sit upright, so Nina took her on her horse, holding the girl in front of her like a child. Maria rode with Ethan and Sarah, now all 3 of them crowded onto one horse. Lily and Grace took another mount. The water kept rising. They rode through hell for another 15 minutes, water now high enough that the horses were swimming more than running. Ethan's arms burned from fighting the reins, keeping the horse's head above water. Then suddenly the canyon widened. The walls pulled back. The water spread out and shallowed. Ahead, Ethan could see the lights of Redemption Creek glowing in the valley. They'd made it. They climbed out of the canyon onto dry ground, the horses heaving and shaking. Elena slid off Nina's horse and collapsed. Maria was beside her, immediately checking her pulse, her breathing. "She's alive," Maria said. "But barely. We need that doctor. Now." Ethan looked toward the town, half a mile away, so close he could see individual buildings in the lightning flashes. But between them and the town, blocking the road, sat a single rider on a black horse. Even at this distance, even in the rain and darkness, Ethan recognized him. Colonel Marcus Thornton had beaten them here. Sarah saw him too. Her hand found Ethan's arm. "How we took the canyon. We should have had an hour lead. He must have split his forces, sent some men around while others followed us." Ethan's jaw clenched. "Smart. Always hated smart enemies." Thornton sat motionless on his horse, waiting. Not approaching, not threatening, just waiting. Nina loaded her rifle. "We can go around. Circle wide, come at the town from another direction." "He's got men positioned," Lily said quietly. She was scanning the darkness, her eyes sharp. "There. And there. We're surrounded." She was right. Ethan could see them now, dark shapes on horses spread out in a semicircle. At least 15 men. Maybe 20. All between them and the town. So we fight. Nina raised her rifle. Take as many with us as we can. No. Ethan held up his hand. No more fighting. Not here. Then what? We talk. Ethan dismounted. Sarah, stay with the others. Keep them safe. You can't go out there alone. Sarah grabbed his arm. He'll kill you. Maybe. But maybe he just wants to talk. Ethan pulled free gently. If shooting starts, you ride for town. Don't stop. Don't look back. Get to the marshal's office and tell them everything. Ethan, promise me. Sarah's jaw worked. Finally, she nodded. I promise. But if he kills you, I'm coming back as a ghost and making your afterlife miserable. Wouldn't expect anything less. Ethan walked toward Thornton. Each step felt like walking to his own execution. Rain plastered his hair to his skull, ran into his eyes. His hand stayed near his gun but didn't draw. Not yet. Thornton waited until Ethan was 10 feet away. Then he spoke. Mr. Cole. His voice was cultured, educated, not the rough frontier accent Ethan expected. I believe you have something that belongs to me. Those women don't belong to anyone. Oh, but they do. I paid good money for each one. Legal contracts, territorial approval, everything proper and official. Thornton smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. 6 women acquired through legitimate means for the purpose of moral reformation and domestic training. Their escape constitutes theft of property. You harboring them constitutes conspiracy. You call it reformation. They call it slavery. Slavery is illegal, Mr. Cole. I run a reformatory, a place where wayward women learn proper Christian values and useful skills. Thornton's smile widened. The fact that some of those skills include servicing the needs of civilized men is simply practical education. Ethan's hand moved toward his gun. Thornton's men all raised their rifles. I wouldn't, Thornton said mildly. You're outnumbered 20-1, and while I respect your chivalrous instincts, I'm not in the mood for heroic gestures tonight. What do you want? My property returned, immediately. In exchange, I'll let you walk away. You can even ride into that town and tell whatever story you like. By tomorrow, I'll be gone with my girls, and you'll have nothing but your conscience to keep you warm. And if I refuse, then I take them anyway, and you die in the mud. Thornton gestured to his men. I have 20 armed men here, another 10 in town making sure the good citizens stay indoors and mind their business. The marshal is currently enjoying a bottle of my finest whiskey and a very convincing argument about jurisdiction. No one is coming to help you, Mr. Cole. You're alone. Ethan glanced back at the 6 women huddled together watching. Sarah's face was pale but fierce. Nina held her rifle like she was ready to die fighting. Lily stood in front of Grace, protective. Maria cradled Elena, who could barely keep her eyes open. 6 women. 6 lives. 6 chances at freedom. No, Ethan said. Thornton's smile faded. Excuse me. I said no. You want them, you'll have to go through me. That can be arranged. Thornton nodded to his men. Take him. 4 riders spurred forward. Ethan drew his gun, fired twice. 2 men went down. The other 2 reached him before he could aim again. One tackled him off his feet. They hit the mud hard, Ethan's gun flying from his hand. A fist caught his jaw. Another slammed into his ribs. He tasted blood. Then gunfire erupted from behind him. Sarah was shooting. So was Nina. Their bullets scattered Thornton's men, forced them to take cover. Lily had Grace's hand, was pulling her toward town. Maria half-carried, half-dragged Elena. Run! Ethan shouted, rolling out from under his attacker, driving his elbow into the man's throat. Get to town! They ran. The women scattered in different directions. Sarah and Nina providing covering fire. Lily and Grace sprinting for the nearest buildings, Maria struggling with Elena's weight. Thornton's men gave chase. Ethan grabbed his fallen gun. Shot the man who'd tackled him. spun to find Thornton himself riding down on him, a cavalry saber raised high. Ethan dove sideways. The blade whistled past his head so close he felt wind from its passage. He rolled, came up firing. His bullet caught Thornton's horse in the shoulder. The animal screamed, reared. Thornton fell. For a moment, the two men faced each other in the rain. Thornton on his knees in the mud. Ethan standing with his gun pointed at the colonel's head. "Do it," Thornton said calmly. "Pull that trigger. But know this, you kill me, and my men will hunt those women to the ends of the earth. They'll make what I did seem merciful." "You're bluffing." "Am I?" "Ask yourself, Mr. Cole, do you really think killing one man will save them? I'm not the only one who profits from their labor. Half the territorial government has interests in my reformatory. Judges, marshals, politicians. You think they'll let 6 women ruin a profitable enterprise?" Ethan's finger tightened on the trigger. Behind him he could hear Sarah screaming his name. Could hear gunfire and shouting and the sounds of pursuit through the town. "You're a good man, aren't you?" Thornton smiled through bloody teeth. "That's your weakness. Good men hesitate. Good men doubt. Good men get themselves killed trying to save people who can't be saved." Ethan lowered his gun. "You're right. I am a good man." He grabbed Thornton by the collar, hauled him to his feet. "But I used to be a Texas Ranger, and Rangers know how to bend the rules." He slammed the gun barrel into Thornton's temple. The colonel dropped like a stone. Ethan ran. The town of Redemption Creek was chaos. Thornton's men rode through the streets chasing the women. Townspeople watched from windows, shutters cracked faces, pale and scared. No one came out to help. No one interfered. Ethan saw Sarah first. She'd taken cover behind a water trough, trading shots with 2 of Thornton's men. She was out of ammunition, using the empty gun as a club when one man got too close. Ethan shot the man, grabbed Sarah's hand. "Where are the others?" "Nina's at the livery stable. Lily and Grace made it to the church. Maria and Elena." Sarah's voice broke. "I don't know. I lost sight of them." "We find them. Together. Come on." They ran through rain-slicked streets. Found Nina pinned down in the livery, her rifle empty, 3 of Thornton's men closing in. Ethan and Sarah hit them from behind. Quick, brutal, no mercy. "Where's Maria?" Nina gasped, her face bruised and bleeding. "Don't know. We're looking." "The doctor's office." Nina pointed down the street. Maria was trying to get Elena to the doctor. That's where they'd go. They ran for the doctor's office. Found the door kicked in the front room, destroyed. Dr. Turner lay on the floor unconscious but breathing. No sign of Maria or Elena. "No." Sarah's voice went hollow. "No, no, no." Lily appeared in the doorway, Grace clinging to her. "They took them. Thornton's men. I saw them dragging Maria and Elena toward the north road. Maria was fighting, but Elena couldn't even stand." "How long ago?" Ethan demanded. 5 minutes, maybe less. 5 minutes. They could still catch them. Ethan grabbed fresh ammunition from Dr. Turner's gun cabinet. Reloaded. "Nina, stay with Grace and Lily. Protect the doctor. Sarah with me." "Ethan!" Nina caught his arm. "There's at least 6 men with them. You can't." "Watch me." He and Sarah ran into the rain. North Road led out of town toward the Badlands. Open country. No cover. Terrible place for a rescue. Perfect place for an ambush. They found horses at the edge of town, 2 of Thornton's mounts riders dead or fled. Ethan and Sarah rode hard, pushing the animals to their limit. They caught up 3 miles out. 6 of Thornton's men. Maria and Elena on one horse, both women tied, Maria still fighting despite bound hands. Elena slumped unconscious. Ethan didn't slow down. Didn't call out a warning. Just rode straight at them, gun drawn, Sarah right beside him. He shot the first man before anyone realized they were there. Sarah took the second. The remaining 4 scattered, drawing weapons, trying to organize. Ethan rode through them like judgment incarnate. Shot a 3rd man. 4th went down to Sarah's bullet. 5th tried to run. Ethan's horse trampled him. The sixth man grabbed Maria, held a knife to her throat. "Stop! Stop! Or I cut her!" Ethan reined in his horse, 50 feet away, too far for a clean shot. The man was using Maria as a shield, only his head visible. "Let her go," Ethan said. "Drop your gun first." Ethan hesitated, looked at Sarah. She was already dismounting, moving to the side, trying to get a better angle. "I said, drop it." The man pressed the knife harder. Blood welled where blade met skin. Ethan dropped his gun. The man smiled, started to say something. Probably something about how he was going to kill them all anyway. He never finished. Maria drove her head backward into his face. Hard. The man's nose shattered. His grip loosened. Maria twisted, brought her bound hands up, grabbed the knife. She drove it into his throat. The man fell. Maria stood over him, shaking the knife still in her tied hands. "Nobody puts a blade to my throat," she said. Her voice was steady despite tears. "Not anymore. Never again." Ethan and Sarah ran to her, cut her bonds. Maria immediately moved to Elena, still unconscious on the horse. "She's breathing," Maria said. "Barely. We need to get her back to town, to the doctor." "Town's not safe." Sarah looked back toward Redemption Creek. "Thornton's men are still there, and the townspeople won't help us." "Then we don't go back to town." Ethan was already thinking, already planning. "There's a homestead 10 miles east. Family named Morrison. Good people. They'll help." "You sure?" Nina had appeared on horseback, Lily and Grace with her. They must have followed when they saw Ethan and Sarah leave. "I'm sure." Ethan looked at the 6 women, bloodied, exhausted, traumatized, but alive, still fighting, still free. "Then we ride," Sarah said. She climbed onto her horse, held out a hand to Ethan. "Together." He took her hand, let her pull him up behind her this time. His arms went around her waist, holding on. They rode east into the breaking dawn, leaving Redemption Creek and Colonel Marcus Thornton and the life they'd known behind. Ahead, the sun was rising, and for the first time in years, Ethan Cole felt something he'd forgotten existed. Hope. The Morrison homestead appeared like a mirage in the dawn light, a small house, a barnfields stretching toward distant hills. Ethan pulled his horse to a stop 50 yards out, studying the property. "Something wrong?" Sarah asked from in front of him. "Maybe. Too quiet." Ethan scanned the windows, looking for movement. "The Morrisons have 3 kids. Place should be louder." Nina rode up beside them. Elena still slumped unconscious against her chest. "We don't have time to be cautious. This girl needs help now." As if summoned by her words, the front door opened. A woman stepped out, mid-40s, blonde hair, going gray rifle in her hands. "That's far enough," she called. "State your business." "Mrs. Morrison, it's Ethan Cole. I need help." The woman squinted at him, lowered her rifle slightly. "Ethan, that really you?" "Yes, ma'am. I've got wounded with me. One's in bad shape." Morrison's eyes swept over the group, 6 bedraggled women on horseback, all of them looking half dead. Her expression softened. "Thomas," she called back into the house. "Get out here. We've got company." A tall man emerged, rifle in hand. He was older than his wife, maybe 50, with the weathered face of someone who'd spent his life working the land. His eyes found Ethan, and something like relief crossed his features. "Cole, heard you were dead." "Heard wrong." Ethan dismounted, helped Sarah down. "Thomas, Mary, I need to ask a favor. A big one." Thomas Morrison looked at the women. His jaw tightened. Those wouldn't happen to be the same women Colonel Thornton's been searching for, would they? Ethan's hand moved toward his gun. Sarah stepped closer to him, ready to run. "Because if they are," Thomas continued, "then you made the right choice bringing them here. Mary, get the guest room ready. I'll fetch Dr. Morrison from the back field." "Dr. Morrison?" Maria asked weakly. She was still holding Elena upright on the horse. "Our son, Mary Morrison said, already moving toward the house. Studied medicine back east before he came home to help with the farm. Bring the wounded girl inside. Quickly now. They carried Elena into the house. The Morrison home was simple but clean, smelling of bread and coffee and safety. Mary led them to a small bedroom where they laid Elena on a quilt-covered bed. The girl's breathing was shallow, her skin burning hot. Maria knelt beside her, pressing a cool cloth to her forehead. "How long has she been like this?" Mary asked, her voice gentle but clinical. "The infection started 4 days ago. Got worse after she nearly drowned in the flash flood." Maria's voice broke. "I've tried everything I know. Prayer, herbs, nothing works." "You did good keeping her alive this long." Mary squeezed Maria's shoulder. "My boy will take care of her now." Dr. James Morrison arrived 10 minutes later. He was younger than Ethan expected, maybe 25, with his mother's blonde hair and his father's serious eyes. He didn't waste time on introductions, just moved straight to Elena's bedside. "Septic infection," he said after examining her arm. "Advanced. She needs surgery immediately or she'll be dead by nightfall." "Surgery." Grace pressed closer to Lily, her face pale. "You mean cutting?" "I mean saving her life." James was already rolling up his sleeves. "Mother, I need hot water, clean bandages, and my medical kit. Father, I'll need you to hold her down. This is going to hurt, and she might wake up." "I'll hold her," Nina said. She positioned herself at Elena's shoulders, her strong hands ready. "She's been through worse than this. She can survive it." James looked at her for a long moment. "You care about her." "She's my sister. Not by blood, but by choice. That's stronger." "Good. She'll need that strength to get through this." James opened his medical bag, pulled out instruments that gleamed sharp and terrible in the lamplight. "Everyone except those helping should leave. This isn't something you want to watch." Nobody moved. "We stay," Sarah said firmly. "All of us. Whatever happens to Elena, we face it together." James nodded. "Then brace yourselves. This won't be easy." He wasn't wrong. Elena woke up screaming when the knife cut into infected flesh. Nina and Thomas Morrison held her down, while James worked with steady hands, cutting away dead tissue, draining pus, cleaning the wound with alcohol that made Elena's screams rise to something inhuman. Grace sobbed into Lily's shoulder. Maria prayed in rapid Spanish, her hands clasped so tight her knuckles went white. Sarah stood with her arms wrapped around herself, her face carved from stone, but her eyes wet with tears. Ethan couldn't watch. He stepped outside into the morning sun, his stomach churning. Behind him, Elena's screams continued. Mary Morrison joined him on the porch. "First time seeing surgery. First time seeing someone I know go through it. You know her, really know her. Or are you just playing hero?" Mary's voice wasn't unkind, just direct. "I know all of them. Their names, their stories, what they survived." Ethan looked at the older woman. Sarah Whitehawk, Nina Redhawk, Lily Chen, Maria Vasquez, Grace, and Elena. 6 women who deserved better than what this world gave them. And you're trying to give them better. I'm trying to give them a choice, freedom to make their own decisions. He paused. Is that hero behavior or just basic human decency? Mary smiled. Little bit of both, I reckon. She was quiet for a moment, then said, Colonel Thornton was here yesterday. Ethan's head snapped toward her. What? Came riding up with 10 men. Asked if we'd seen any escaped property. That's what he called them, property. Like they were horses or cattle. Mary's voice went hard. I told him I hadn't seen anything. He didn't believe me. Had his men search the barn, the fields. They left when they found nothing, but Thornton said he'd be back. Why didn't you tell him about me? Why help us? Because 30 years ago I was one of those girls. Mary's eyes went distant. Different circumstances. Different captor. But the same basic story, young woman with no choices, forced to do things that broke her soul. Thomas found me half dead by the side of a road. He could have left me. could have turned me over to the men hunting me. Instead, he married me, gave me his name and his protection, and asked for nothing in return except that I heal. She looked at Ethan. So when I see 6 women running from a man who calls them property, I don't hesitate. I help. It's that simple. Inside, Elena's screaming stopped. The sudden silence was somehow worse than the noise. Ethan and Mary rushed back inside. James Morrison stood over Elena's still form, his hands bloody to the wrists, his face exhausted but satisfied. "She's alive," he said. "Barely. The next 24 hours will tell if the surgery worked. But I got all the infected tissue. If she's strong, if she fights, she might make it." Maria collapsed beside the bed, her head on Elena's hand. "Thank you. Thank you." Nina stood slowly, her legs unsteady. She'd been holding Elena down for nearly an hour, her arms shaking from the effort. "What can we do?" "Keep her cool, keep her comfortable, pray if you're the praying type." James washed his hands in a basin, the water turning pink. And wait. Waiting was torture. They took turns sitting with Elena. Maria refused to leave her side, so Sarah brought her food and water. Grace read Bible verses aloud in her soft voice. Lily mixed herbal teas with ingredients from Mary Morrison's garden. Nina paced like a caged animal, her hands flexing open and closed. Ethan stood watch outside, his rifle ready. If Thornton came back, he'd see the riders long before they arrived. Sarah found him there an hour after sunset. "You should rest. You haven't slept in 2 days." "Can't sleep. Too much to think about." "Like what?" "Like what happens next. Even if Elena survives, we can't stay here. Thornton knows about the Morrisons. He'll come back with more men, more pressure. I can't let this family suffer for helping us." Sarah leaned against the porch railing beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched. "So we leave. Go somewhere Thornton can't follow. Where he's got connections throughout the territory. Judges, marshals, politicians. He told me himself, half the territorial government profits from his reformatory. Even if we run, he'll find us eventually. Then we don't run, we fight. 6 women and 1 man against the entire territorial government." Ethan shook his head. "That's not a fight. That's suicide." "Maybe. Or maybe it's the only way we get to live free." Sarah turned to face him. In the moonlight, her scar caught silver, making her look fierce and beautiful and breakable all at once. "I spent 18 months as Thornton's property. 18 months of being told I was worthless except for what men could take from me. I survived by telling myself that someday, somehow, I'd be free. Well, I'm free now, and I'll die before I go back. You won't have to go back. I promise you that. You can't promise that. You're one man, Ethan. A good man, a brave man, but still just one man. You can't protect all of us forever. Watch me." Sarah smiled sadly. "That's what I'm afraid of. That you'll get yourself killed trying to be our hero." "Would that be so terrible?" "Yes, because—" She stopped, looked away. "Because we need you. I need you." The words hung between them. Ethan felt his heart hammer against his ribs. "Sarah, don't say anything that makes this harder than it already is." She pushed off the railing. "I'm going to check on Elena." She left him standing alone in the darkness, his chest tight with things he couldn't say. Inside, Elena opened her eyes for the first time since the surgery. Maria saw it first. "Elena, can you hear me?" Elena's lips moved. No sound came out at first, then a whisper. "Maria, you're crying." "Happy tears, Hermana. You're alive. You're going to be okay. The pain, that means you're healing. The doctor says you'll recover fully if you rest and let the medicine work." Elena's eyes found the others gathered around her bed. Nina standing like a guardian. Lily and Grace holding hands. Sarah in the doorway. And beyond her, Ethan keeping watch. "We're still free," Elena asked. Still free, Nina confirmed. Still together. Still fighting. Good. Elena's eyes drifted closed again. That's good. She slept through the night. In the morning, her fever was down and her breathing easier. James Morrison declared it a minor miracle, though he credited his surgical skills more than divine intervention. They celebrated with a real breakfast, eggs and bacon, and fresh bread with butter. The first proper meal any of them had eaten in days. Grace cried while eating, overwhelmed by the simple normalcy of it. The celebration ended when Thomas Morrison came running from the south field. "Riders," he said, breathing hard. "At least 20, coming fast." Ethan grabbed his rifle. "Thornton." "Can't tell yet, but they're armed and moving with purpose." The women scrambled into action. Nina and Sarah took defensive positions. Lily helped Elena out of bed despite the girls' protests. Maria grabbed Grace, ready to run if necessary. "The root cellar," Mary Morrison said quickly. "Under the kitchen. It's hidden, reinforced. They won't find it unless they know where to look." "And if they search the house?" Nina asked. "Then Thomas and I delay them while you escape out the back." Mary's voice was calm, decided. "We've made our choice. We're not letting Thornton take you." "We can't ask you to risk," Sarah started. "You're not asking. We're offering." Thomas checked his own rifle. "Now get in that cellar before those riders arrive." They descended into darkness for the second time in as many days. The Morrison cellar was better than Ethan's, had been larger with ventilation shafts and storage. But it was still a hole in the ground, still a hiding place for people with no other options. Above them they heard hooves. Voices. The front door opening. "Thomas Morrison." A man's voice. Not Thornton. Someone else. "We're looking for a man named Ethan Cole. Information says he might be here." "Don't know any Ethan Cole," Thomas replied. His voice carried through the floorboards. "You boys want to tell me what this is about?" "Federal business. We've got a warrant for his arrest. Conspiracy to aid escaped criminals, theft of property, assault on a territorial official." "That official wouldn't be Colonel Marcus Thornton, would it?" Silence. Then, "You know Thornton, know of him. Know he's been riding around claiming he owns people, calling human beings property. That kind of talk makes me sick." "That's real interesting, Mr. Morrison, because we've got testimony that says Ethan Cole is harboring 6 women who belong to Colonel Thornton's reformatory. Women with legal contracts placing them under Thornton's care and authority." "Legal?" Thomas spat the word. "There's nothing legal about what Thornton does." "That's for a judge to decide. Now, are you going to let us search this property, or are we going to have a problem?" "In the cellar." Ethan stood. Sarah grabbed his arm. "Don't. They'll arrest you." "Better me than all of us." "No. We face this together or not at all." Sarah's grip tightened. "That's what you told us, remember? We're in this together." "Marshal!" A new voice from outside. Younger, excited. "Found fresh tracks leading to the barn. Lots of them. Horses and people." Footsteps overhead, moving toward the kitchen, toward the cellar door. Nina raised her rifle. "If they find us, we fight." "No." Ethan pushed the barrel down. "No more killing, not if we can help it." "Then what do you suggest?" Lily asked. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook. "Let them take us." Before Ethan could answer, Mary Morrison's voice rang out. "Marshal, I need to show you something. In the barn. Evidence you'll want to see." "What kind of evidence?" "The kind that proves Colonel Thornton isn't what he claims to be. Come on, both of you. Leave your men outside." Footsteps retreated. The voices grew distant. "What's she doing?" Grace whispered. "Buying us time," Ethan said. "Or getting herself killed. Maybe both." 5 minutes passed. 10. The voices outside grew louder, angrier. Then a gunshot cracked through the morning. Ethan threw open the cellar door, ran outside, found the federal marshal standing in the barn doorway, his face pale, his gun still smoking. Thomas Morrison lay on the ground, blood spreading across his chest. Mary knelt beside her husband, her hands pressed to the wound. Thomas, Thomas, stay with me. He drew on me, the marshal said, his voice shaking. I didn't have a choice. He reached for his gun and, you murdered him. Mary's voice was ice. He was showing you the ledgers, Thornton's ledgers, documentation of every woman he bought, every official he bribed, every law he broke. Thomas was giving you evidence, and you killed him for it. The marshal looked at the papers scattered across the barn floor. Ledgers, letters, contracts with signatures from judges and politicians. This can't be real, he said. It's real. Mary's tears fell on her husband's face. Thomas spent 6 months gathering that evidence, risking his life to prove what Thornton really is, and you shot him before he could show you. Thomas coughed. Blood bubbled at his lips. Mary, listen. Don't talk. Save your strength. No time. Thomas's hand found hers. The evidence. Make sure they see it. Make sure. Thornton pays. He'll pay. I promise. Thomas's eyes found Ethan standing in the barn entrance. Cole, take care of my family. Take care of those women. I will. Good man. Thomas smiled, coughed again. Better than I thought. His eyes went still. His hand went slack in Mary's grip. Mary Morrison sat in the dirt holding her dead husband and keening a sound of such raw grief that even the marshal stepped back, his face stricken. James Morrison ran from the house, saw his father, dropped to his knees. No, 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 no. The 6 women emerged from the cellar. They stood in the doorway watching a family destroyed by their presence, by their desperate flight from slavery. Grace started crying. Maria wrapped her arms around the girl, her own tears falling silent. The marshal looked at Ethan. This is your fault. All of this. If you hadn't brought those women here, if I hadn't brought them here, they'd be dead or worse. Ethan's voice was flat, dangerous. But you're right. This is my fault. Thomas Morrison died because I asked him to help. So I'm going to make sure his death means something. He picked up one of the scattered ledgers, opened it, found page after page of damning evidence, names, dates, amounts paid. Senators who accepted bribes, judges who ruled in Thornton's favor, marshals who looked the other way. The federal marshal's name was on one of those pages. Ethan held up the ledger. This says you took $500 from Colonel Thornton last month. Payment for delivering 3 Cheyenne women to his reformatory. The marshal's face went white. That's a lie. Is it because there's a signed receipt with your name on it? Ethan flipped pages. And another one here, and here. You've been taking Thornton's money for 2 years. The marshal's hand moved toward his gun. Nina's rifle was faster. Don't, she said quietly. I've killed 3 men in the past 2 days. 1 more won't trouble my conscience. The marshal froze. Behind him, his deputies were reading the scattered papers, their faces growing more horrified with each page they turned. Sir, one of them said, if this is true, if even half of this is true, Colonel Thornton is running the biggest criminal enterprise in the territory. It's not true. It's forged. It has to be. Then why did Thomas Morrison die trying to show it to you? Mary stood slowly, her husband's blood on her hands. Why would he gather this evidence if it was fake? Why would he risk everything? She walked toward the marshal. Small woman. Grieving woman. But her eyes held fury that made the armed man step back. You killed my husband because you're on Thornton's payroll. Because you knew that ledger would expose you. Mary's voice rose. But Thomas didn't die for nothing. I'm taking this evidence to the territorial governor. I'm taking it to every newspaper between here and Washington. And when I'm done, everyone will know what Colonel Marcus Thornton really is. Everyone will know what you really are. The marshal's hand was on his gun now. I can't let you do that. Then you'll have to kill me too. And these witnesses. And anyone else who's seen these papers." Mary gestured to the 6 women, to Ethan, to the marshal's own deputies. "How many murders before you're satisfied? How many people have to die to protect Thornton's secrets?" The marshal's finger tightened on the trigger. His deputy moved faster, grabbed the marshal's arm, twisted the gun away. "No more, sir. I didn't sign up for this. I became a lawman to protect people, not to murder them for knowing the truth." The other deputy drew his own weapon, pointed it at his superior officer. "Drop the gun, Marshal. You're under arrest." Everything changed in that moment. The corrupt marshal was disarmed and bound. The evidence was secured. Mary Morrison, her face streaked with tears and dirt, held her dead husband one last time before allowing her son to cover the body with a blanket. The honest deputy, his name was William Cross Young, and idealistic, looked at Ethan. "What do we do now?" "Now we finish what Thomas Morrison started." Ethan picked up the ledgers. "We take this evidence to someone who can't be bought, someone with the power to shut Thornton down for good." "Who?" Sarah asked. "Judge Catherine Hartwell, Federal Circuit Judge. She's in Santa Fe right now presiding over territorial cases." Ethan looked at the group. "She's also the one person in the territory that Thornton couldn't bribe. He tried. She threatened to have him arrested just for asking." "Santa Fe is 3 days' ride," Deputy Cross said. "Thornton will know we're coming. He'll try to stop us. Then we ride fast and we ride hard." Ethan turned to Mary Morrison. "Ma'am, I know you've lost enough because of us, but we need to borrow horses. And we need you and James to stay here, stay safe. When this is over, when Thornton's behind bars, I'll make sure you're compensated for everything. I promise." Mary looked at her husband's body, at her son weeping beside it, at the 6 women who'd brought violence to her peaceful home. "Take the horses," she said. "Take whatever you need. Just promise me one thing." "Anything." "Promise me you'll make Marcus Thornton pay. Not just with prison, not just with justice. Make him pay in a way that means no woman ever suffers what these 6 suffered. Make him pay so his name becomes a warning instead of a threat." Ethan held out his hand. Mary shook it. "I promise," he said. They rode out an hour later. 8 riders, now the original 6 women, Ethan and Deputy Cross. The corrupt marshal was left tied up in the Morrison barn, guarded by the remaining deputy, until proper authorities could collect him. As they crested the first hill, Sarah looked back at the Morrison homestead. At the small grave, James was already digging for his father. "Thomas Morrison died because of us," she said quietly. "He died fighting for something he believed in." Ethan kept his eyes forward. "Same as we're doing. Same as we'll keep doing until this is finished. And if we die too, then we die free. That has to count for something." Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then, 3 years ago you called me Apache trash, spit at my feet, wouldn't let me take water from a public well. I know. Now you're riding into danger to protect me, to protect all of us. Why? What changed?" Ethan thought about Morning Star, about guilt and redemption, about the weight of doing nothing while people suffered. "I did," he said finally. "I looked in the mirror one day and hated what I saw. So I decided to become someone different, someone I could respect. It's that simple." "Nothing about you is simple, Ethan Cole." He almost smiled. "Probably not." They rode through the afternoon, through sunset, through the first stars appearing overhead. Behind them, somewhere in the darkness, Colonel Marcus Thornton was gathering his forces. Ahead, 3 days away, sat a judge who might be their salvation or their doom. And between here and there lay a frontier that didn't care about justice or freedom or 6 women trying desperately to stay alive. But they rode anyway, because sometimes the only choice left is the choice to keep fighting. The ambush came on the second day just after noon, when the sun was high and merciless. Ethan saw the glint of rifle barrels a half-second before the first shot rang out. He threw himself sideways off his horse, tackling Sarah with him. They hit the ground hard as bullets tore through the air where they'd been riding. "Cover!" Deputy Cross shouted, already dismounting, pulling his rifle free. Nina was fastest. She had Grace off their horse and behind a boulder before the second volley hit. Lily dragged Elena down, shielding the still recovering girl with her own body. Maria dove for the rocks, her hands already reaching for the pistol Ethan had given her. 8 shooters, maybe 10. Spread across the ridge above them, professional positioning, military precision, Thornton's best men. "How many?" Sarah asked, pressed flat beside Ethan behind inadequate cover. "Too many." Ethan counted muzzle flashes. "They've got high ground and numbers, we're pinned. So what do we do?" "We survive." Ethan raised his rifle, fired twice at the nearest shooter. One bullet sparked off rock. The other found flesh. A man screamed and tumbled down the slope. Return fire came instantly. A dozen rifles all aimed at Ethan's position. Bullets chewed through the rock inches from his head, spraying stone fragments that cut his face. "Ethan Cole!" a voice bellowed from above. Not Thornton. Someone else. "You're surrounded. Throw down your weapons, and we'll let the women live." "That's Walt Freeman," Deputy Cross called from his position 20 yards away. "Thornton's second in command. He's lying. They'll kill everyone." "I know." Ethan reloaded. "Freeman, you want us come down here and take us?" Laughter echoed off the rocks. "I don't think so. We're comfortable right where we are. But I'll tell you what, you've got 5 minutes to decide. Surrender, or we start shooting the women. 1 bullet every minute until you comply. Your choice, hero." Grace whimpered. Nina's arm tightened around her. "He's bluffing," Maria said, but her voice shook. "He's not." Lily looked at Ethan, her face pale but determined. "Thornton wants us alive, but Freeman doesn't care. He's killed before. He'll kill again." Elena tried to sit up, winced at the pain in her arm. "Then we die fighting. Better than surrender." "Nobody's dying." Ethan's mind raced, calculating angles, distances, possibilities. They were in a kill box, open ground behind them. Cliffs on both sides, shooters above. Classic military trap. But military traps had weaknesses. "Sarah, how good are you with that rifle?" "Good enough." "Why?" "See that outcropping on the left ridge, the one that overhangs their position?" Sarah squinted up at the cliff face. "I see it. There's loose rock there, shale and sandstone, unstable. If someone could hit it just right with enough force, it would collapse, take out their position." Sarah understood immediately. "But that's a 200-yard shot, uphill, in wind. Can you make it?" Sarah looked at the outcropping, at the men above them, at her sisters huddled behind inadequate cover. "I can try. That's all I'm asking." Ethan turned to Deputy Cross. "When that rock slide starts, we charge, all of us, straight up the middle while they're confused." "That's suicide," Cross said. "It's a chance, which is more than we have now." Ethan looked at Nina. "Can you get the others up that slope? I can carry Elena if I have to." "You won't have to." Elena's jaw set with determination. "I can climb. I'm not dead yet." 4 minutes, Freeman called down. "Better decide quick, Cole." Ethan met Sarah's eyes. "You miss this shot, we all die." "Then I better not miss." Sarah settled into position, her rifle braced against the rock. She took 3 slow breaths, her body going perfectly still. Above them, Freeman was counting. 3 minutes. You know what happens in 3 minutes. I'm going to shoot the youngest one first. The little girl with the cross. Put a bullet right through that pretty blonde head. Grace's breath hitched. Lily pulled her closer. Sarah's finger tightened on the trigger. Squeezed. The rifle kicked. The bullet arced upward, a tiny piece of lead against all that stone. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the outcropping groaned. Rock shifted, cracked. Whole sections of cliff face started to slide. The shooters above scrambled backward as tons of stone avalanched down on their position. Now! Ethan burst from cover, running uphill through a hail of wild gunfire. Sarah was beside him, Deputy Cross on his left, the 6 women charging behind them like avenging spirits. The rock slide took out 3 of Freeman's men immediately. 2 more were cut off from their rifles, scrambling for sidearms. The remaining 5 tried to reposition, but Ethan was already on them. He shot the first man point blank, slammed the rifle butt into the second's face. The man went down hard. Nina tackled a third man before he could fire. Her fists hammered his face until he stopped moving. Deputy Cross and another of Freeman's men traded shots. Both fell. Cross clutched his shoulder blood seeping through his fingers. The other man didn't move again. That left Freeman and 2 others. Freeman had his gun pressed against Maria's head. The young woman's eyes were wide with terror, her hands raised. Freeman's other arm was around her throat. "Back off!" Freeman shouted. "Back off, or I kill her right now!" Ethan froze. Sarah raised her rifle, but had no clear shot. Nina was already moving to flank, but Freeman saw her and pressed the gun harder against Maria's skull. "I said back off, all of you!" Freeman's voice cracked slightly. "I'm walking out of here with this girl. When I'm safely away, I'll let her go. You have my word." "Your word," Sarah spat. "You're a slaver and a murderer. Your word means nothing. It means she lives or dies in the next 5 seconds. Your choice." Ethan lowered his rifle. "Let her go, Freeman. Take me instead." Why would I want you?" "Because Thornton wants me dead. I'm the one who ruined his operation, killed his men, destroyed his business. You bring him my head, you'll be rewarded. But Maria's just a girl. She's worthless to you." "Worthless?" Freeman laughed. "She's worth $300 at auction. That's not worthless." "She's worth $300 if she's undamaged. But look at her, Freeman. She's been running for days, half-starved, traumatized. Nobody's going to pay full price for damaged goods." Maria's eyes flicked to Ethan. He gave the smallest nod, hoping she understood. "But me," Ethan continued, "I'm worth more. Thornton would pay $1,000 to watch me die. Maybe more. So take me. Let the girl go." Freeman considered this. His grip on Maria loosened slightly as he thought about the money. Maria drove her elbow backward into Freeman's ribs, hard. The gun swung away from her head for just a second. Sarah fired. The bullet took Freeman through the throat. He dropped gurgling hands clutching at the wound. Maria scrambled away, Grace catching her, both of them shaking. Freeman's last 2 men tried to run. Nina shot one. Lily, of all people, tripped the other. He fell hard, and Elena, still weak from her infection, kicked him in the head with her boot heel. He stayed down. Silence fell over the ridge. 8 of Freeman's men dead or unconscious. Deputy Cross wounded but alive. And 8 survivors standing in the aftermath, breathing hard, covered in dust and blood. "Is it over?" Grace asked in a small voice. "This part is." Ethan checked Cross's shoulder wound. Through and through. Clean. But Thornton's still out there, and now he knows we're coming. They bound Cross's wound, took what supplies they could from Freeman's men, and rode on. The deputy was pale from blood loss, but insisted he could make it to Santa Fe. "I didn't become a lawman to quit halfway through a mission," he said through gritted teeth. That night, they made camp in a canyon where fire wouldn't be visible from the trail. No one spoke much. They were too exhausted, too traumatized by how close they'd come to dying. Sarah sat apart from the others, staring into the darkness. Ethan found her there an hour after they'd eaten. "You made an impossible shot today," he said, sitting beside her. "I almost missed. Another inch to the left and nothing would have happened. But you didn't miss. You saved all of us." "I killed men today, Ethan. Shot them like they were animals." Sarah's voice was hollow. I keep seeing their faces. Keep wondering if they had families, wives, children who'll grow up without fathers because of me. They chose to work for Thornton, chose to hunt women for money. They made their choices. And I made mine. Doesn't make it easier. She looked at him. How do you live with it? The killing. You were a ranger. You've killed before. How do you carry that weight? Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Honestly, I don't know if you ever get used to it. Every man I've killed haunts me. I see their faces when I close my eyes, hear them in my dreams. He paused. But I also know that if I hadn't killed them, they would have killed innocent people. Sometimes there's no good choice, only less terrible ones. That's a bleak philosophy. It's a realistic one. Ethan looked up at the stars. But here's what keeps me going. I look at you, at Nina, at Elena, and the others, and I know that every man I killed today was trying to drag you back to hell. So yeah, their deaths haunt me, but your freedom matters more. Sarah was quiet. Then she reached over and took his hand. Her fingers intertwined with his, warm and solid and real. 3 years ago, I hated you, she said softly. Hated everything you represented, every way you failed to be decent. I know. Now She stopped. Started again. Now I don't know what I feel. Gratitude. Respect. Something more than either of those, but I'm afraid to name it. Because naming it makes it real, and real things can be taken away. Ethan squeezed her hand. Sarah. Don't. Not yet. Let me have this moment without complicated words or promises neither of us can keep. She leaned her head against his shoulder. Just sit with me. That's enough. So he did. They sat together under the stars while the others slept, and for a few precious minutes the world wasn't hunting them. The moment ended when Nina shook Ethan awake 3 hours before dawn. We've got company, she whispered. 12 riders, maybe more. Coming from the east. Ethan was up immediately, rifle in hand. How far? Mile, maybe less. Moving slow, but they're coming this way. Wake the others, quietly. We need to move before... A voice called from the darkness. Ethan Cole, I know you're in there. Come out. Let's talk like civilized people. Colonel Marcus Thornton had found them. Ethan stepped out of the canyon into the pre-dawn darkness. Thornton sat on his black horse, 20 yards away, illuminated by lamplight. Behind him, 24 armed men formed a semicircle, cutting off any escape. You're persistent, I'll give you that, Thornton said pleasantly. Most men would have given up by now, handed over the women, saved themselves the trouble. I'm not most men. No, you're not. You're a self-righteous fool who thinks he's saving people. Thornton dismounted, walked closer. Let me tell you what you're really doing, Cole. You're prolonging their suffering. Those women will never be free. Even if you reach Santa Fe, even if you convince Judge Hartwell to hear your case, do you really think one judge can overturn the entire territorial system? I think one judge can start. Start what? A revolution? Thornton laughed. There are 50 reformatories like mine across the territory. Hundreds of officials who profit from them. Thousands of men who depend on the labor those women provide. You're not fighting me, Cole. You're fighting an institution. And institutions don't fall because one man decides to be noble. Maybe not. But they start falling when people stop accepting them as normal. Philosophical, I like that. Thornton was only 10 feet away now, close enough that Ethan could see the cold calculation in his eyes. Here's my offer. You give me 5 of the women, any 5 you choose. In exchange, I let you keep one. Your favorite, I assume that's Sarah. You two ride away together, start a new life somewhere I can't reach you. The others return to my reformatory where they belong. No. You didn't even consider it. Because there's nothing to consider. All 6 women go free, or none of us do. Even if it cost your life. Even then. Thornton studied him for a long moment. You really love her, don't you, Sarah Whitehawk? The woman you called Apache trash 3 years ago, you love her. Ethan didn't answer. Couldn't answer, because saying yes made Sarah a target, and saying no was a lie that tasted like poison. Your silence is answer enough. Thornton smiled. That's your weakness, Cole. Love, attachment, care. Those are chains just as real as the ones I put on women. They bind you, limit you, make you vulnerable. They also make me human, something you stopped being a long time ago. Perhaps. But I'm a very successful inhuman creature, while you— Thornton gestured to the armed men surrounding them. You're about to die for people who'll forget you in a year. I'll take that over being remembered as a monster. Such poetry. Wasted on the frontier, really. Thornton turned back toward his horse. You have until sunrise to reconsider. Give me the women or I take them over your corpse. Either way, I'm leaving here with my property. He rode back to his men. Ethan returned to the canyon where 7 people waited in tense silence. He wants all of us, Sarah asked. He wants all of you. He'll settle for 5. And you told him no. Of course I did. Nina checked her rifle. How many men does he have? 24. All armed. All trained. Ethan looked at Deputy Cross, still pale from his shoulder wound. Against 8 people, 1 injured, most exhausted. We're going to die, aren't we? Grace's voice was steady despite the tears on her face. This is where it ends. No. Lily put her arm around the girl. This is where we make a choice. We can surrender and spend the rest of our lives in chains, or we can fight and die free. I vote for dying free. We're not dying. Ethan's voice was firm. Listen to me, all of you. We've survived impossible odds twice already. We can do it again. How? Maria asked. We're trapped in a canyon. We can't run. We can't hide. We can barely fight. Then we don't fight fair. Ethan looked at each of them in turn. Nina, you said you grew up tracking game with your father. Can you find us a way out of this canyon that doesn't go through Thornton's men? Maybe. These canyons all connect. There might be a path through the narrows. How narrow? Single file. Barely wide enough for a horse. We'd have to go slow. How long would it take? To reach the other side hour. Maybe 2 if Elena can't keep pace. I can keep pace. Elena's voice was weak but determined. I'm not slowing anyone down. Sarah spoke up. Even if we escape through the narrows, Thornton will just follow. He's got trackers. He'll hunt us down. Not if he's busy. Ethan turned to Deputy Cross. You still got those sticks of dynamite you took from Freeman's men? Cross nodded slowly. 3 sticks. But I'm in no shape to— You don't have to be. Ethan looked at Lily. You said you know about explosives. Your father worked on the railroad. I know how to use them, yes. But what are you planning? I'm planning to give Thornton something to think about besides chasing us. Ethan grabbed one of their packs, started pulling out supplies. Here's what we're going to do. He laid out his plan. It was desperate dangerous, and had maybe a 20% chance of working, but 20% was better than 0. Nina led the women into the narrows, while Ethan and Deputy Cross stayed behind. They spent the next hour rigging the canyon entrance with dynamite tripwires and every trap they could improvise. This is suicide, Cross said as they worked. You know that, right? You stay here and light this fuse, you'll never make it out before it blows. I know. So why do it? Because someone has to. Because those women deserve a chance. Ethan finished the last wire connection. And because Thomas Morrison died buying them that chance, I owe it to him to see it through. Morrison was a good man, better than most. Yeah, he was. Ethan checked his rifle one last time. You should go, catch up with the others. They'll need protection if Thornton's men get through. And leave you here alone. What kind of lawman would that make me? The kind who survives to testify against Thornton in court. Ethan met the younger man's eyes. Go, deputy. That's an order. You don't have authority to order me. Then I'm asking, please, get them to Santa Fe. Make sure Judge Hartwell hears what happened. Make sure Thomas Morrison's death means something. Cross hesitated, then nodded. If you die here, Cole, I'm putting you in for a posthumous medal. If I die here, I don't want a medal. I want you to make sure Sarah and the others stay free. You have my word. Cross disappeared into the Narrows. Ethan was alone. Sunrise came 20 minutes later. With it came Thornton and his men. They approached cautiously, rifles ready. Thornton rode in front, confident as always. Your time's up, Cole, he called. Send out the women. They're gone, Ethan called back. You're too late. Thornton's face darkened. Search the canyon. Find them. His men spurred forward. Ethan lit the fuse and ran. The dynamite exploded with a roar that shook the earth. The canyon entrance collapsed in a massive rock slide, burying the first wave of Thornton's men under tons of stone. Screams, chaos, horses panicking. Ethan sprinted for the Narrows, bullets chasing him. One grazed his leg. Another took his hat clean off. He dove into the narrow passage as gunfire chewed up the rock behind him. The passage was barely wide enough for his shoulders. He scraped through sideways, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Behind him, Thornton was shouting orders, but the rock slide had cut him off from pursuit. They'd have to go around, miles around. Ethan staggered through the Narrows for what felt like hours. His leg burned where the bullet had grazed him. His ribs ached. Every breath hurt. He emerged on the far side to find 7 people waiting. Sarah ran to him immediately, her hands finding his face, checking him for injuries. You're alive, she said, and her voice broke on the words. Barely. Ethan leaned against her, suddenly exhausted. But we bought time. Thornton has to go around. That gives us 12 hours. Maybe more. 12 hours to reach Santa Fe. Nina was already helping him onto a horse. Can you ride? I can ride. They rode hard through the morning, through noon into afternoon. Ethan's leg wound bled through the bandage Maria tied around it, but he didn't slow down. Couldn't slow down. Not when they were this close. Santa Fe appeared on the horizon as the sun started to sink. Adobe buildings, church spires, the territorial courthouse standing proud in the center of town. They galloped through the streets, people scattering out of their way. Ethan led them straight to the courthouse steps, where a woman stood in a black judge's robe, watching their approach with sharp, intelligent eyes. Judge Catherine Hartwell. Ethan Cole, she asked as they dismounted. Deputy Cross sent word you were coming. Said you had evidence of criminal enterprise. More than evidence, Your Honor. Ethan pulled Thomas Morrison's ledgers from his saddlebag. His hands shook as he handed them over. We have proof. Names, dates, amounts. Every official Colonel Marcus Thornton bribed. Every woman he bought. Every law he broke. Judge Hartwell opened the first ledger. Her eyes widened. Dear God. And we have witnesses. Ethan gestured to the 6 women. Sarah Whitehawk, Nina Redhawk, Lily Chen, Maria Vasquez, Elena Vasquez, Grace Whitehawk. 6 women who survived Thornton's reformatory, who can testify to everything he did. You're asking me to take on the most powerful men in the territory, Hartwell said quietly. No, Your Honor, she yours. I'm asking you to do what's right. Judge Hartwell looked at Sarah. You're Sarah Whitehawk, the one mentioned in these ledgers. I am, Your Honor. It says here you were purchased for $300, kept for 18 months, forced into... Hartwell stopped, her face going hard. Forced into acts no human being should endure. That's correct. Are you willing to testify to this under oath, knowing that powerful men will try to discredit you? Knowing you'll be called a liar and worse? Sarah stood straighter. I am, Your Honor. Because if I don't, other women will suffer what I suffered. And I can't live with that. Judge Hartwell looked at each of the 6 women in turn. Saw their strength, their determination, their refusal to be silenced. Then I'll hear your testimony. She turned to her bailiff. Prepare the courtroom. Emergency session. And send federal marshals to arrest Colonel Marcus Thornton on charges of slavery, kidnapping, bribery, and conspiracy. Your Honor. The bailiff looked nervous. Colonel Thornton has friends in high places. Doing this could end your career. Then my career ends. Judge Hartwell's voice was steel. But not before I see justice done. Now move. They filed into the courthouse. The sun was setting, painting the sky red and gold. Behind them, somewhere on the trail, Thornton was coming, racing to stop them before the truth could be told. But they'd made it. Against impossible odds, through violence and sacrifice and the deaths of good people, they'd reached sanctuary. Now came the hardest part, telling the truth, making people listen, changing a system that benefited from their silence. Sarah took Ethan's hand as they climbed the courthouse steps. Whatever happens in there, whatever they say about us, thank you. For believing us. For fighting with us. For being the man you chose to become instead of the man you were. Ethan squeezed her hand. Thank you for giving me the chance to be better. They walked into the courthouse together. 6 women, 1 man, 1 judge, and the truth that would burn down an empire or die trying. The doors closed behind them, just as Colonel Marcus Thornton rode into town with 20 armed men. The trial was about to begin. The courtroom filled within minutes. Word spread fast, and Santa Fe federal judge calling an emergency session, Colonel Marcus Thornton about to be exposed. People packed the benches, crowded against walls, craned necks to see the 6 women sitting in the witness section. Sarah felt every eye on her, judging, assessing, doubting. Judge Hartwell banged her gavel. This court is now in session. Before we begin, I want to make something clear. Anyone who disrupts these proceedings will be removed. Anyone who threatens these witnesses will be arrested. This courtroom operates under federal law, and federal law recognizes no man as property owner of another human being. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Several well-dressed men in the back exchanged nervous glances. Bailiff read the charges. The bailiff stood, unrolled a document. The Territory versus Colonel Marcus Thornton. Charges include kidnapping, slavery, conspiracy, bribery of federal officials, and operating a criminal enterprise under false pretenses. The courtroom doors burst open. Thornton strode in, flanked by 2 lawyers in expensive suits. He looked immaculate despite the hard ride, clean-shaven, pressed clothing, the picture of respectability. His eyes swept the room, lingered on the 6 women, then settled on Judge Hartwell with complete confidence. Your Honor, one of his lawyers said smoothly. This is highly irregular. My client wasn't notified of these proceedings. He's had no time to prepare a defense. Your client has been evading federal marshals for 3 days. Hartwell replied coolly. He's lucky I'm giving him a trial at all instead of summary judgment. Sit down, counselor. The lawyer's jaw tightened, but he complied. Thornton settled into his chair, utterly composed. He smiled at Sarah. She wanted to claw that smile off his face. The prosecution will present its evidence, Judge Hartwell said. Deputy Cross stood, his wounded shoulder bandaged, but his voice strong. Your Honor, the Territory presents Thomas Morrison's ledgers. Documented evidence of 18 months of criminal activity. Payments to judges, bribes to marshals, purchases of human beings classified as contractual labor. He handed the ledgers to Judge Hartwell. She opened them, her face growing darker with each page. Your Honor, I object. Thornton's lawyer was on his feet. These ledgers are hearsay, unverified. They could have been fabricated by anyone with a grudge against my client. They're signed, Hartwell said quietly. By your client, by Senator Williams, by Marshal Hendricks, by Judge Preston. She looked up. Are you suggesting all these signatures are forgeries? I'm suggesting the documents are questionable at best. Then let's question them. Hartwell gestured to Sarah. Miss Whitehawk, please take the stand. Sarah stood. Her legs felt like water, but she walked to the witness chair with her head high. The bailiff held out a Bible. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Sarah looked at the Bible, at the cross Grace wore around her neck, at the God who'd supposedly watched while Thornton destroyed so many lives. "I swear," she said. Judge Hartwell leaned forward. "Miss Whitehawk, please tell the court how you came to be in Colonel Thornton's custody." Sarah took a breath. 18 months ago, I was teaching at a missionary school. Apache children mostly, some Navajo. We were teaching them to read, to write to what end? Thornton's lawyer interrupted. "What was the purpose of this education?" "Objection," Deputy Cross said. "Relevance. I'm establishing context, Your Honor." "Overruled. Answer the question, Miss Whitehawk." Sarah met the lawyer's eyes. "We were teaching them because every human being deserves the chance to learn. Because education is freedom." "Freedom." The lawyer smiled. "Interesting choice of words. Isn't it true that your school was teaching children to reject their own culture, to abandon their heritage in favor of white civilization?" "No, we were teaching them to survive in a world that wanted to erase them." "By erasing them yourselves." Sarah's hands clenched. "We were giving them options. Thornton took those options away." "Let's talk about that." Judge Hartwell cut off the lawyer before he could continue. "Tell me what happened the day Colonel Thornton came to your school." Sarah closed her eyes, saw it again. Fire, screaming, children running. "He came with 20 men. Said the territorial government had authorized him to take custody of all Native women over the age of 14 for reformation and domestic training. I told him the school was protected. Federal land, federal funding. He laughed and said his authorization superseded federal protection." "Did he show you this authorization?" "He showed me a gun." Sarah's voice went flat. "He shot the headmistress when she tried to stop him. Sister Mary Catherine. She was 63 years old. She died on the floor while Thornton's men dragged 22 women out of that school." Gasps from the courtroom. Thornton's expression didn't change. "What happened to those women?" Hartwell asked gently. "Most of them are still in Thornton's reformatory. 5 died, 3 from disease, 2 from beatings." Sarah looked directly at Thornton. "And 6 of us escaped." "Thank you, Miss Whitehawk. Defense your witness." Thornton's lawyer stood, adjusted his cuffs, smiled. "Miss Whitehawk, you claim to have been kidnapped, yet records show you signed a contract agreeing to reformation training." "I was forced to sign." "Were you, or did you sign willingly in exchange for food and shelter?" "Records indicate you were destitute, living on the streets. The contract offered you a home." "The contract offered me slavery." Strong language for a simple labor agreement. The lawyer pulled papers from his briefcase. "It says here you agreed to work in exchange for room board and moral instruction. Standard domestic service contract. How is that slavery?" Sarah's nails dug into her palms. "Because I couldn't leave. Because I was beaten when I refused orders. Because I was..." She stopped. Couldn't say it. Not in front of all these people. "You were what, Miss Whitehawk?" "You know what?" "I need you to say it, for the record." Sarah looked at Judge Hartwell. The older woman nodded encouragingly. "I was forced to provide sexual services to men who paid Colonel Thornton for access to the women in his custody. Is that clear enough for your record?" The courtroom erupted. Shouts, gasps. A woman in the front row stood and walked out, her face pale. Judge Hartwell banged her gavel. "Order, I will have order." The lawyer waited for silence. Then softly, "You're claiming Colonel Thornton ran a brothel." "I'm claiming he ran a slavery operation disguised as reformation." "Do you have proof of this?" "I have my body. I have 18 months of nightmares. I have the scars he gave me when I fought back." Scars can come from anywhere. Nightmares are not evidence. What I'm asking for is proof. Documentation. Witnesses who aren't criminally invested in destroying my client's reputation. Objection. Deputy Cross was on his feet. Counsel is attacking the witness's credibility without basis. Sustained. Counselors stick to questions relevant to the charges. The lawyer smiled. No further questions, Your Honor. Sarah stepped down, shaking. Nina was next. Then Lily. Then Maria. Each told the same story with different details. Kidnapping, forced labor, sexual slavery disguised as moral reformation. And each time, Thornton's lawyer picked apart their testimony, found inconsistencies in dates, questioned their memories, suggested they were lying for revenge or profit. By the time Elena took the stand weak and pale from her infection, the courtroom was divided. Half believed the women, half thought they were fabricating evidence to destroy a legitimate business. Elena's voice was barely above a whisper. I was 12 years old when they took me from my village. 12. I didn't even understand what they wanted at first. I thought... She stopped, tears streaming. I thought they were going to teach me. Instead, they taught me that my body was the only thing I was worth. Miss Vasquez, the lawyer said, not unkindly. You've been through trauma. Perhaps your memories are confused. Perhaps what you remember as abuse was actually discipline meant to help you learn proper behavior. Discipline. Elena's voice strengthened. You call rape discipline? The courtroom went silent. I was 12, Elena repeated. 12 years old. And Colonel Thornton sold my virginity to a man who paid extra because I was young. That's not discipline. That's not reformation. That's evil. Thornton finally reacted. A muscle twitched in his jaw. Your Honor, his lawyer said quickly, my client categorically denies these allegations. He runs a legitimate reformatory dedicated to helping unfortunate women. If abuses occurred, they were committed by rogue employees acting without his knowledge or consent. Convenient, Judge Hartwell said dryly. Mr. Thornton, would you like to testify on your own behalf? Thornton stood, straightened his jacket, walked to the witness stand with the bearing of a man who'd never doubted his own righteousness. He took the oath without hesitation. Colonel Thornton, his lawyer began, please tell the court about your reformatory. Gladly. I established the reformatory 6 years ago with the blessing of the territorial government. Its purpose is to take women from desperate circumstances, poverty, prostitution, criminal activity, and give them structure, education, moral guidance. We teach them domestic skills that make them employable. We provide room and board. We offer them a path to respectable life. And the allegations of forced sexual servitude. Completely false, slanderous. These women signed contracts agreeing to work in exchange for care. Some of them violated those contracts by running away. Now they're trying to destroy my reputation to avoid legal consequences for breach of contract. Did you purchase these women as they claim? I paid their debts. Many came from families who owed money. I settled those debts in exchange for the women agreeing to work for a specified period. Perfectly legal under territorial law. And the sexual services Miss Whitehawk described. Thornton's face was grave, sincere. Your Honor, I won't deny that some of our residents formed romantic attachments to men in town. Adult women making adult choices. We didn't encourage it, but we didn't prevent it either. To do so would be controlling their personal lives beyond our authority. It was a masterful lie, delivered with such conviction that Sarah saw doubt creep across several faces in the courtroom. Your witness, Thornton's lawyer said to Deputy Cross. Cross approached the stand. Colonel Thornton, you claim these women signed contracts willingly. Yet Miss Whitehawk testified she was forced to sign at gunpoint after you killed the headmistress of her school. How do you explain that? I've never killed anyone in my life. The headmistress Miss Whitehawk mentions died of natural causes, a heart attack brought on by the stress of the school closing due to lack of funding. I have the death certificate if you'd like to see it. Forged, Sarah said from her seat. Judge Hartwell looked at her sharply. Miss Whitehawk, you'll have your chance to respond. Colonel, continue. There's nothing more to say. These women are lying. I understand why they're desperate. They've been manipulated by this so-called rescuer, Ethan Cole, but their lies don't change the truth. Cross pulled out the ledgers. Then explain these. Your signature on payments to federal officials. Your handwriting documenting the purchase of human beings. Those ledgers are fraudulent, obviously created by someone trying to frame me. Your handwriting expert will verify that. I don't need a handwriting expert. I'm telling you they're fake. And the signatures of Senator Williams, Marshall Hendricks, Judge Preston, all fake too. For the first time, Thornton hesitated. I can't speak to what others may have signed, but any document bearing my signature is a forgery. Cross turned to Judge Hartwell. Your Honor, the prosecution requests a recess to secure a handwriting expert. Denied. We're settling this now. Hartwell held up one of the ledger pages. Colonel Thornton, this entry dated March 14th of this year shows a payment of $500 to Marshall Hendricks. The notation says, for delivery of 3 Cheyenne women. Your signature is at the bottom. Are you saying you didn't write this? I'm saying it's a forgery, Your Honor. Then you won't mind providing a handwriting sample for comparison. Thornton's lawyer stood. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. So is running a slavery operation. Bailiff, provide the colonel with paper and pen. Thornton wrote, passed the paper to Judge Hartwell. She compared it to the ledger. Her face went hard. Identical, she said. Down to the distinctive loop in your capital T and the way you cross your sevens. A skilled forger could replicate. Enough. Hartwell's voice cracked like a whip. I've heard enough. This court finds. The courtroom doors exploded inward. 10 men burst through, all armed. Not Thornton's men. These wore federal marshal badges. The lead marshal was older, silver-haired, with the kind of face that had seen too much and stopped caring decades ago. Judge Hartwell, he said coldly. I'm Marshal Stevens from the territorial capital. I have orders to halt these proceedings immediately. On whose authority? Senator Williams and the territorial governor. This trial is prejudicial to ongoing federal investigations. You're to cease immediately and remand the defendant to my custody. Hartwell stood. Marshal Stevens, I know exactly who you are. You're listed in these ledgers as receiving payments from Colonel Thornton. You're compromised. You have no authority in my courtroom. I have a federal warrant that says otherwise. Stevens threw a paper on the bench. Signed by the territorial governor himself. You can comply or be held in contempt of territorial authority. Territorial authority doesn't supersede federal judicial independence. We'll see about that. Stevens gestured to his men. Secure Colonel Thornton. We're taking him into protective custody. Like hell you are. Deputy Cross drew his weapon. Nobody's taking anyone anywhere. Stevens's men drew their guns. Cross's gun was aimed at Stevens. Stevens had his gun on Judge Hartwell. The entire courtroom was one trigger pull away from massacre. Ethan had been silent until now, sitting in the back watching. But Sarah saw him move, saw his hand go to his gun. Don't, she mouthed. Please. He hesitated. Grace stood up, 14 years old, terrified. But she stood and walked into the center of the room where all the guns were pointed. Stop, she said. Her voice was small, but it carried. Just stop. Little girl, sit down before you get hurt, Stevens said. No. Grace held up her wooden cross. You're all talking about laws and authority and jurisdiction. But what about God's law? What about the commandment that says you shall not steal? Colonel Thornton stole me from my family, stole 18 months of my life, stole my childhood. Grace, Lily started. I'm not finished. Grace turned to the crowded courtroom. You're all sitting there deciding if we're telling the truth, deciding if our pain is real enough to matter. Well, I'm going to make it simple for you. Look at me. Really look at me. She pulled down the collar of her dress, revealing burn scars across her shoulder. This is from when I refused to call a man master. He pressed a branding iron to my skin until I screamed the word. I was 13. She turned, lifted her hair, showed more scars. These are from being whipped because I cried when they took me from my family. 10 lashes. I counted every one. She faced the courtroom full on. So when you're deciding if we're lying, remember that I'm 14 years old and I have more scars than anyone should get in a lifetime. Remember that Elena is 17 and she was sold when she was 12. Remember that Sarah spent 18 months being told she was worthless, except for what men could take from her body. Tears streamed down Grace's face, but her voice never wavered. We're not lying. We're not confused. We're not trying to destroy an innocent man. We're trying to stop evil. And if you don't help us, if you let Marshal Stevens take Colonel Thornton back to the people who profit from his crimes, then you're as guilty as he is. The courtroom was absolutely silent. Then from the back, an older woman stood. I believe them, she said quietly. Another person stood. So do I. Then another, and another. Within moments, half the courtroom was on their feet. I believe them. They're telling the truth. Thornton should hang. Marshal Stevens looked around at the standing crowd, at the anger building in their eyes. His hand was still on his gun, but his confidence wavered. Judge Hartwell banged her gavel. Marshal Stevens, your warrant is noted. However, this is a federal courtroom operating under federal authority. Unless you have a federal warrant, which you don't, I suggest you holster your weapon and leave my courtroom before I have you arrested for intimidation of a federal judge. The territorial governor can take it up with the federal circuit court in Denver. Until then, my courtroom, my rules. Leave, now. Stevens held her gaze for a long moment. Then he holstered his gun, gestured to his men. They backed out of the courtroom slowly, their eyes on Deputy Cross's still raised weapon. When they were gone, Hartwell sat back down. This court finds Colonel Marcus Thornton guilty on all charges. Sentencing will be immediate. Colonel Thornton, you are hereby sentenced to life imprisonment with no possibility of parole. You will serve your sentence at the federal penitentiary, where you will be segregated from general population for your own protection. Thornton's face went white. Your Honor, you can't. I can, and I did. Bailiff, take him into custody. As they dragged Thornton away, he looked at Sarah one last time. This isn't over, he said. You think you've won, but you haven't. There are others like me, dozens of reformatories across the territory. You've stopped one man. The system continues. Then we'll stop the system. Sarah's voice was steady. One man at a time if we have to, starting with you. Thornton was gone. The courtroom erupted in cheers and shouts. Grace collapsed into Lily's arms, sobbing. Nina stood with her fists clenched, tears streaming down her face. Maria and Elena held each other. Deputy Cross finally lowered his gun, his hands shaking. Judge Hartwell banged her gavel for order. Furthermore, this court declares all contracts between Colonel Thornton and any woman in his custody to be void and unenforceable. Any official who accepted bribes from Thornton will be investigated and prosecuted. Any reformatory operating under similar conditions will be subject to federal review. She looked at the 6 women. You're free. Truly free. No one owns you. No one has authority over your bodies or your lives. You are recognized by this court as full citizens with all rights and protections thereof. Sarah couldn't breathe. Free. The word felt too big to fit inside her chest. Ethan found her outside the courthouse an hour later. She was sitting on the steps watching the sunset, still trying to process what had happened. You did it, he said, sitting beside her. We did it. Sarah looked at him. You, me, Nina, all of us. Thomas Morrison, Mary Morrison, Deputy Cross, Grace finding courage none of us knew she had. She was remarkable in there. She was. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Ethan, what happens now? Thornton's in prison, but he was right there. Are others like him? Other reformatories? Other women suffering? Then we fight those too. Ethan took her hand. Judge Hartwell asked me to work with her office, help identify other operations, testify in other trials. She's putting together a task force to shut down every reformatory in the territory. That could take years. Probably will. It's dangerous. People like Marshall Stevens won't give up their profits easily. I know. Sarah looked at their joined hands. At this man who'd gone from calling her trash to dying for her freedom in the space of 3 years. Why do you keep fighting? You've done enough. You could walk away. Start over somewhere safe. Could you? No. Then you have your answer. Ethan squeezed her hand. Besides, I figure I've got a lot of making up to do. 3 years of being the wrong kind of man. Going to take at least that long being the right kind to balance it out. That's not how redemption works. No, how does it work? Sarah thought about Sister Mary Catherine, about Morning Star, about Thomas Morrison, about everyone who died so they could be free. I think redemption is choosing to be better every single day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. It's not about balancing scales. It's about becoming someone who doesn't need the scales anymore. That's a better answer than mine. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then, Sarah, I need to tell you something. Before we left the Morrison homestead, before any of this, Mary Morrison asked me a question. She asked if I loved you. Sarah's breath caught. What did you say? I didn't answer. Because answering would make you a target. Would give Thornton leverage. But Thornton's gone now, locked away where he can't hurt anyone. So I'm going to answer now if that's okay. I'm listening. I love you. The words came simple and clear. Not because you're broken and I want to fix you. Not because saving you makes me feel like a hero. I love you because you're strong and fierce and you kept fighting even when the world told you to give up. I love you because you saw the worst kind of man in me and gave me the chance to be better. I love you because... Sarah kissed him. It was nothing like the desperate kiss before battle or the grateful kiss after victory. This was choice, pure and simple. Two people who'd survived hell deciding to reach for something good. When they pulled apart, Sarah was crying. I hated you for 3 years. Hated everything you represented. And now I don't know if it's love yet, but it's something real, something that deserves a chance to grow. She touched his face. So yes, let's fight together. Let's tear down every reformatory in this territory. And maybe while we're doing that, we'll figure out what this is between us. I can live with maybe. The courthouse doors opened. Nina, Lily, Maria, Elena, and Grace emerged. They'd been talking with Judge Hartwell about their testimony about what came next. We're going back to our villages, Nina said. Those of us who still have villages. Elena and Maria want to help Mary Morrison. Grace is going to school Judge Hartwell arranged for her to attend a real school in Denver. And you? Sarah asked. I'm staying. Going to work with Deputy Cross and the task force. Going to find every woman still trapped in places like Thornton's reformatory and set them free. Nina smiled grimly. Turns out I'm good at this fighting thing. Might as well use it for something that matters. Lily stepped forward. I'm going west, to San Francisco. My father's family is there. I want to see if they'll accept me after all these years. They will, Sarah said. You're impossible not to love Lily Chen. They stood together on the courthouse steps as the sun set, 7 people who'd started as strangers and ended as family. Bound not by blood, but by shared trauma and shared triumph. We should make a promise, Grace said suddenly. All of us. Promise that we'll never forget what happened, never stop fighting, never let anyone tell us we were wrong to survive. I promise, Elena said. I promise, Maria echoed. One by one, they all promised. Sarah was last. I promise, she said, and meant it with everything in her. I promise to keep fighting, to keep telling the truth, to make sure that every woman in every reformatory knows that freedom is possible, that survival is not surrender, that we are worth more than what anyone tried to make us believe. The sun disappeared below the horizon. Stars began to appear overhead, and in the darkness, 7 people stood together unbroken. 6 months later, the territorial governor resigned in disgrace when his connection to Thornton's operation was exposed. 12 reformatories were shut down. Their operators arrested 300 women freed. Senator Williams died in prison before his trial could begin officially, of natural causes, though rumors suggested otherwise. Mary Morrison used Thomas's life insurance to open a shelter for women escaping slavery. It operated out of their homestead, and James Morrison provided free medical care to anyone who needed it. Deputy Cross was promoted to federal marshal. His first act was arresting Marshal Stevens on corruption charges. Nina became a tracker for the task force hunting down reformatory operators who fled before they could be arrested. She was terrifyingly effective at it. Lily made it to San Francisco. Her father's family welcomed her home. She wrote letters to Sarah every month, each one full of hope and healing. Elena and Maria stayed with Mary Morrison. Elena learned to be a teacher. Maria studied medicine with James. They built lives from the ashes of trauma. Grace excelled at school in Denver. Her teachers said she was brilliant, that she'd probably be the first Apache woman to attend university. She wrote home every week, each letter ending with the same phrase, "I'm still free, still fighting, still me." And Sarah. Sarah married Ethan Cole in a small ceremony with all her sisters present. They worked together on Judge Hartwell's task force traveling the territory, shutting down operations one by one. It was dangerous work, exhausting work, but it mattered. 3 years after Thornton's trial, they were riding through familiar territory when Sarah pulled her horse to a stop. "This is where we met," she said quietly. "Where I knocked on your door and offered you something I should never have had to offer." Ethan looked at the cabin, weathered now, unused since that night. "Feels like a lifetime ago." It was. "We're different people now. Better people." Sarah considered this. "Honest people. Healing people. People who know that freedom isn't something given. It's something fought for every single day." She turned her horse toward the sunset, toward the next town, the next reformatory, the next group of women who needed to know that escape was possible. Ethan rode beside her. "You ready?" "I've been ready since I was 12 years old, and someone first told me I was property." Sarah's voice was strong, steady, unbreakable. "I've been ready since the first time someone looked at me and saw a thing instead of a person. I've been ready my entire life, and I'm not stopping until every woman in this territory knows she's free." They rode forward together into the dying light, and behind them the cabin stood empty, a monument to where fear had ended and courage had begun.